G'day Bomber fans. Well, the AFL boys got the dub against the Swans. The VFL boys also got the dub against the Swans. No injuries to talk about here. So that's the good thing. But yeah, of course, there are players to replace in that AFL side. Lewis Hayes. I'm recording this before we know the extent of that injury, but it does seem like an ACL, which just, sucks. Luckily, the silver lining is that we do have one or two defenders that can come in and replace him here. So yeah, there's a bit to talk about. We're still on debut watch. It's weird to talk about a VFL game without Hayes, Day-Wicks, and Johnson. The latter was the carryover emergency for the AFL game, which shows how close he is to making that debut. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, the Dons, in the end, we win by 65 points. Xavier O'Neill was awesome for the VFL boys. Matt Foley as well. Oscar Smart is a cheeky mid-season draft option for other clubs. Probably not Essendon because we've got too many small forwards. And Tyler Sellers, who our new recruit, booted 3 goals as well. But yeah, let's get to the AFL listed blokes. Okay, starting with probably the big one, Elijah Tsatas. He was obviously dropped from the AFL side. And yeah, look, I think it was probably the right call. I just don't see how you could have fit him in the team, in that midfield. I mean, you could maybe argue Caldwell got another week's rest, but it would probably just prolong Tsatas getting dropped anyway. And Caldwell was still alright, and someone that we need in that team. So, yeah, Tsatas, though, in the Rezzies, he was elite as always. 41 touches, 10 clearances, kicked a lovely goal too, which should help him and his confidence. There are still things that creep into his game. I mean, that ball use by foot, it is still a bit frustrating. But yeah, I'm just nitpicking a really good performance, probably because we want to see him back in the AFL. He was best on ground, I'd say. He was doing so much in close and personal. The annoying thing is that he's definitely ready to play AFL and deserves a go. But yeah, I know our midfield just... It hasn't been hit hard by injury. Parrish is the only one on the sidelines. Everyone else is fit. I think more VFL footy awaits, unfortunately. If he keeps playing like this, he'll be first in line when we need him. I really want to see him play in the AFL, and I'd love it if he just breaks in and cements his spot. I think that would increase the vibes of the year even more, seeing him hold his spot in the AFL side. And he will if he can translate some of this VFL form over to the AFL, because he's been great in the Rezzies. But yeah, I think we'll probably see him for another week or so here. Nik Cox, he played pretty much the whole game, I believe, which is great. Last week, he was featuring up forward a bit. This week, it was down the other end. He was more of a defender, kind of probably filling in for Lewis Hayes. And look, that's why I'm ready not to give up on Cox just yet, because he is genuinely a really versatile player. He can play multiple roles. We've seen him play decent games in those roles at times. I thought he was good. He didn't get much freedom with the ball. He limited touches and he always seemed to be under pressure. But he did some really nice things. He intercepted well, 7 for the game, 4 tackles, featured in the ruck. It was a bit of a scrappy game for him. When you think of Nik Cox, you don't think of a contested, hand pass heavy player, but that's how he was forced to play a bit. But for a second game back after a really long layoff, because, he was out for a while with that concussion and then the calf. You've got to be happy. It's just good to see him have a bit of fun playing footy. He went for a specky in the second quarter, which doesn't sound like much. He didn't mark it, but it's just good seeing him do stuff like that again. Even just seeing him play footy is good. So yeah, happy he's out there, happy with his performance. I think we'll start to see him do more from here. Jayden Laverde, I think this is probably the obvious Lewis Hayes replacement if we do want to go like for like-ish, because he was unreal. And yes, there are going to be some mistakes. He had over 30 touches. You're bound to make mistakes if you have those numbers. But yeah, I thought he was great. He was so commanding in the air. It felt like there was a magnet to him or something. The ball just always seemed to be coming his way. 11 interceptions for the game. He just looked like an AFL player in the VFL. So ideal world, we stick with Hayes or Ridley. Ideal world, we're playing our first choice defenders, but I'm happy we've got Laverde on our list as depth. He's someone we know can come in and play a role for us, give us some effort. I expect to see him back in the AFL unless we try something different with our structure against the Bulldogs. Because, when I think Dogs, I think tall forwards, but they are missing Darcy and Jamara. So maybe Mackay and Reid are good enough on their own, and Redmond can potentially play taller if needed, like he did earlier in the year. So Laverde might not be required, but the good news is when we do need another strong key back, he is there for us. He played really well. Kayle Gerreyn, I said this on Twitter after the game, and follow me, by the way, for regular, VFL updates and whatnot. But Gerreyn, every week, there's something new to his game that I notice. Because, you can go back over my last few videos and I say the same thing every time. There's something new that I notice. And this week, Or, I mean, we saw him, his contested marking was great. I think 3 for the game. Kicked a few more goals. He's continuing to impact. But this week, it's his defensive pressure. It was really, really awesome. He laid a great tackle inside 50 early in the game. Later on, I think there was maybe a free kick he gave away, and then his opponent tried to play on off the mark, and he followed up with a lovely smother. Things like that, they don't get you many stats, especially at this level. Stats in the VFL just aren't as detailed, so you wouldn't know about some of his defensive efforts unless you watch live. You'd see his stats and think, it was maybe a quiet game, but 5 tackles inside 50 for a bloke who's almost 2 meters tall. Yeah, that is unreal. So in a way, I'm happy he had a quieter game in terms of just disposals, because we saw something new to his game that really stood out. He's building and building every round. I don't think he plays AFL anytime soon, but I don't mind that. I think he's better off in the VFL for a while. I don't want to mess with whatever he's cooking up right now, because I do think he's going to be with us in the future, though. There are some players, who you're a bit unsure about, but Gerreyn is showing plenty. And the good thing is, it's a widespread, every week there's something new, as I say. So really impressive, 7 touches, but it's so much more than that. He's kicked 12 goals, 6 from his 6 VFL games. He is quietly, someone to be really excited about. Jye Menzie, Lionel Menzie, he was really involved early. I think I gave him a shout out at quarter time because he was just making things happen for us, getting involved with some good pressure, good decision making. I did feel like his impact kind of floated away a little bit as the game went along. I noticed him less and less, which is not ideal for someone who was just dropped from the AFL, but I also think he's always been a player that doesn't dominate VFL footy. I think his best games have probably been in the AFL, and I think he's one who, he's probably a bit stiff to be on the outer, because I thought his start to the year was really impressive in the AFL. He's someone I want to persist with for the future, because he's still very young. But yeah, good test coming up for him now as he tries to fight his way back into the side. I'd suspect there is another smaller forward ahead of him at the moment, though. I'll talk about him in a second, but yeah. 12 touches, 7 tackles, 4 of them inside 50, some great pressure-based moments, some great moments by hand early, but definitely not a pick-me type of game. Alwyn Davey Jnr, now that is what I was crying out for. The last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been really disappointed with his footy. But, I loved his first game back from injury. That had me hyped, but then he just faded away and didn't show enough. But yeah, he was much better in this Sydney game. He had the 2 goals, 15 touches, 10 kicks, 4 inside 50s, and it was just his will to take the game on. The bloke's quick, he's evasive, he should take the game on more, and he did against the Swans. He was looking good, which I love. We need him to come out and show some good signs in his contract year, and hopefully this promising performance can be the platform for that. He should take a lot of confidence from this. And look, I had someone come in and say that I was hating on Davey the other week. I want this guy to succeed. I always want a father-son to be in the side and give us that fun narrative. In an ideal world, he is in our future plans, and I think he's got the talent. He showed that in patches in this game. He just needs to back this performance up now. I want this level of hype to be matched for next week. I want to see another good performance from Davey. But yeah, good start, much better. Luamon Lual. Now, I don't know if he was really quiet or if he was on and off the field or something. He's definitely someone who I really didn't pay attention to. I think maybe that's just because he wasn't really involved in the game much. 6 touches, lowest for the team, 1 kick. The only real moment that stands out to me was a strong tackle at one stage. But yeah, I mean, that's it really. I wish I could tell you more. I might be completely misreading the game. Maybe he was injured or something, copped a knock. Maybe he was playing a negating role that just went over my head. I might have missed something because I don't really replay in the VFL. But yeah, if he was, let me know in the comments. I just barely saw him out there. Matt Guelfi, I mean, yeah, this one, he's probably about ready to go, you'd think. He played 4 minutes last week, 4 minutes this week. I loved some of his efforts. Like Davey, he had the 15 touches and the 2 goals, but that pressure was top notch. He had 5 tackles, some great efforts in the middle of the ground in open play. There was one holding the ball. He found space so well in and around the 50 to get a goal or 2. He just looked a bit too clever for the Swans defenders at times. He's definitely someone we could have back in the AFL at some stage. I don't mind if there's no rush, like with guys like Hobbs kind of playing a similarish role, and how midfield heavy we are. I mean, you could argue he comes back in next week. But yeah, he could be a welcome addition, given how important he has been when he's at his best and fit. But, he's looking good in the VFL too, so I don't really mind what happens with Guelfi. Angus Clarke, new role. He was actually moved up onto the wing this game. Some might think he was up forward because he was around the goals a bit, but that was just through work rate. And it was really, mostly full-time wing minutes. So this is a brand new role and one that really makes sense for Clarke and the team. He's got that elite tank, he can move around the ground with ease, but also our wing stocks are really low in the AFL, that is. And with Jones out, another injury, and we'd have to bring in Luamon Lual. But you know, if we have Clarke to take on this role and look as good as he did, well, it makes it more likely for a debut, which I do think we'll probably see at some stage. I know he's very skinny, but this kid can play. His efforts on both sides of the field were enormous. He had 6 intercepts, kicked 1 goal, had another set shot. He was lining up for it, but it was overturned as he was lining up, so he could have had 2. Really rounded wingman's game, which is really great for someone so fresh to the role. So yeah, I think this guy's, you know, he's an absolute gem. I just know he's going to turn out to be a footy player. And what a gold mine this draft has turned out to be for us. Rhys Unwin, of the draftees, he's probably the only one not really getting into the groove as much, which, you know, it's not an issue. He's got a 2-year contract. He's played 6 games. We shouldn't be too critical of someone this young, so fresh into their AFL journey. He'll probably have another, 20 or so more games before you even worry about him needing to show proper signs. But yeah, just the 8 touches, a few nice moments. I liked him finding Haitley when lining up for a set shot. Could have gone back and nailed it himself, but instead he did the team thing and found his captain on an easier angle. Ended up being a goal, so yeah, bits and bobs. Not doing heaps, but he doesn't really need to be. Big Vigo Visentini. This was a fascinating game because the ruck battle here was really important. He was going up against Peter Laddams, who's played AFL, 57 games, quite a few as the sole ruck, so this was a great experience for Vigo, a little test to see how he'd go against a lesser AFL ruck. No offense to Laddams, but yeah, if Vigo plays in the AFL, it's going to be on someone like Laddams, you'd hope. This is if Goldie was to be rested and hopefully not injured. But yeah, it was a really 50-50 game. It's hard to say which of these two had the upper hand. Vigo had 28 hitouts, 7 tackles, a fair bit of the ball. Laddams had more relief, so rucked less, 17 hitouts, but did get, a fair bit of the pill in some good areas. I mean, both were great. I wouldn't say either really dominated the other. Both had a big say on the game, and that's good. If Vigo was doing this against another AFL-listed ruck, that's all we can really ask for. And now I think we try and, we figure out when he could come in and relieve Goldie a bit, because the mid-season draft's coming up later this month. We've got some shorter rests. We've got a Saturday to Friday for Dreamtime, and then a Friday to Thursday at the Gabba. So Vigo could potentially play one of those games if Goldie is tiring like we saw against North. We'll see how he goes with these rests, but the good news is Vigo looks okay against AFL rucks. I just don't know how he'd go against someone like Nankervis or McInerney. And finally, Jayden Nguyen. Lots happened in this game. He had just the 13 touches, but there were quite a few notes. And that's something that you always notice with Nguyen. He's around the footy and there's energy. In this game, there were a few negatives that also crept in, which I haven't really had to say much about Nguyen yet because he's been so good. I think, and also, negatives, by the way, are never a bad thing into development. I'm not criticizing, or I am criticizing him, but I'm not, I'm not doing it out of anything other than wanting improvement, and I know we'll get that improvement from him. But yeah, I think he was the player who gave away the free kick when Clarke was lining up for goal. I think that was him. I'd love to be proven wrong. But if it was, that's something that just shouldn't be happening. Giving away a free kick during a set shot is a cardinal sin. So he probably had a bit of a talking to after that. But, I mean, yeah, all in all, it was just a good, solid game. Some really strong moments, some ones that he might like back, but, most of the game was good. Some great defensive efforts as always. I thought he was really solid. He's continuing to play pretty heavy negating roles here and there, which is really fun. It is just a joy to watch him play. I really hope I say this every week, I think, but I really do hope he makes it and manages to, get into the AFL because I love his energy. He is just a joy to watch. But yeah, that is that. The Bombers get the job done. Some good performances from young players and from players needing to perform a bit as well. So pleasing weekend from both teams. Kind of ruined a bit by that Hayes injury. He's obviously the VFL stalwart, so yeah, it's unlikely we see him here again, which is going to force us into some interesting changes. Expect plenty of Nik Cox down back in the VFL, and I'm sure this time next month we'll be talking about a mid-season drafty on our list in the Rezzies as well, down in defence. Maybe even Will Hoare, who knows? But yeah, that is all. Like, subscribe, and go Bombers.